All right, everybody. The conflict has started for our first legendary summoner, so it's about time I take my crack at breaking him down, telling you how good he is, and claiming the other conflict to see if I get lucky. So we're going to do two bonus little things right now, hopefully relatively quickly. When we get down to Lorkus, he definitely stacks up and he's definitely different. When you look at all the even untamed legendary summoners to 7 mana, none of them had +1/+1 to 2 different attack variants. A lot of them had +2 to a stat. We had a lot like +2 health, +2 armor, +2 speed, or, Yodin had splash and Kitty had true strike, really, really super powerful type things. But this is different. This actually allows you to make a team where you can be balanced in your attacks, maybe have a front row tank, a front row reach, and then back them up with magic monsters from either one of the teams. This +1 is also pretty nice because silence is pretty prevalent in the game. So now you can kind of hopefully make it so your monsters can do some damage. I know there is some double silence teams out there and stuff like that, but in situations where you don't expect that, this can be pretty important. But also, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket here. This is a much different play, and it's going to be harder to counter. Plus, on top of that, you're going to be able to go ahead and add the correct things where you're going to need them when it comes to his two other abilities. So you have Life Leech and Affliction for 2 characters, or you have Fury and Trample. So Fury and Trample is definitely kind of interesting. This is going to get a lot of play in that Infinite Trample rules set, because now you can give some of the monsters that don't have Trample. The big one that comes to right to your mind, of course, is Manaroth. Manaroth with Trample with his Blast will be kind of ridiculous. And he will be obviously playable with Lorkus because he is a neutral, so that's an interesting thing. Plus, if he happens to end up going against some kind of taunt monster in the first position, he'll have that True Strike and then do double damage on his attacks. That'll be something to be seen. It definitely plays into the strong reach characters within these teams, so we'll take a look at some of those and even the opportunity monsters that are in these teams. Doesn't play as well with sneak monsters. That's the drawback. Now, the Life Leech and Affliction actually can play towards any monster in the game. A lot of people are thinking maybe you throw that on the mages, but there's no reason you couldn't have Life Leech on a melee monster if you decided to do that, and then they would have that ability to Life Leech on damage dealt, which would be quite interesting too. Affliction is going to be an interesting one. I don't think that that's overpowered at this point, except for in the case of giving it to a monster with Scattershot. That is going to be something very interesting, and so we're going to look at our options there, because there is lots of cards that do Affliction towards the first row position. There's only a few cards in the game that do Affliction towards the back of the positions, and with the Grimbar Doom back row triage decks being very popular right now, given their popularity might start to wane as we get our new Grimbar Dune Smasher and Kai. But we will see nonetheless that this could open up some very interesting combos for you. So let's go take a look at the current summoners. These are who he's competing with. I do think still in certain formats, Yasik could steal some thunder from him. Melee only, if you're going to be using fire, you might want that speed and armor piercing over that +1 attack and Life Leech. It'll be interesting to see just because speed becomes so important. And on the flip side, Astral Entity's dodge in that scenario with taking away armor and a resurrect also could possibly compete. That does make me feel like he's not super overpowered when you compare him to the other legendary summoners that he'd be competing with to go onto the board in certain rule sets. This is keeping me thinking that he's going to be more of a play for maybe normal rule sets or just, ones where you want to get into that. So let's go ahead and start looking at the monsters to see who gets that big advantage. All right, so we're going to go to units. First off, let's take a look at the mages. So when you look at the mages, I still need, does this one get to 2 if I get it to max damage? Yeah, so this one could get to 2. This is interesting because this card becomes a little more playable with Scattershot being kind of meta right now. If you're Scattershotting a 3 magic shot around, though Fury and Scattershot has always been weird, but if she's now Life Leeching and having affliction in going into the back row, as I talked about, with the chance of hitting somebody with taunt and doing double damage, it's a very interesting card now that it has that ability to have that third damage. So we'll look out for this one. Now, of course, the apprentice and the Jin Inferni, they are already relatively strong mana damage to attack ratio, but they give that up by having poor HP, not having poor speed. They're both kind of a little bit light on the HPs, especially Inferni. Now you could have these guys not only hitting for very, very high magic, but you could have them life leeching, and you could have them adding in that chance to have an affliction monster, which is actually lacking a little bit on the death team. Here's another monster that'll benefit from the fact that he can have that life leech on him. So now you're talking about a life leeching scavenging immolation. That could be quite problematic for people to deal with. There is still not a real prevalent healer for them to put onto their team, but if you're scavenging and life leeching and your HP is getting really high, when you have a shield against any of the melees or the archers, you could become a problematic monster to kill. That is for sure. Now, when we get into the other mages here that might want an honorable mention, you got a true strike mage, a double strike mage. And so double striking for 4 instead of 3 is pretty powerful. Ifrit Rising, if he's attacking for 4, he's hitting now for 12. That's pretty interesting. And this card right here is already pretty meta for a couple different plays. And so now you could have a play where you put him in the front row, you give him a life leech to make him a little bit of a better tank. He's also dealing out possibly a fiction. He's making the melee guys weaker. And then he has Manaroth behind him, who has an increased attack now and could possibly also be life leeching in those front two positions if you went the life leech route. So very, very interesting there. Now, this would probably, I think one of the things we'll get to is that his life leech or trample with Fury are going to be definitely a little more interchangeable as you go into the tactics phase. This is good to see because a lot of the tactic phase right now, you bring Avina no matter what for self-heal. You bring Prophet Rosen no matter what for archery buff. You bring a Kane no matter what for the ambush. You know, that you're not really usually... sometimes you might even be putting your stuff out before you see the other person's team. And that's not really what the tactics phase is supposed to be. It's supposed to be able to take a look at your lineup, take a look at their lineup, and then use your tactics to buff your team in a way to give you an advantage. Definitely, Lorkus is going to have a better ability to do that. Now, when we get into the mages, so obviously an extra manage damage for any life leecher on death, plus an extra damage for some of the other guys that are sitting here throughout the death team, could just be kind of ridiculous. Death already has some amazing cards, and we can't forget about Baron Fiat here getting that extra mana damage. But now you could see this could be starting at a 6. You could have this guy starting at a 4 with the life leech. You could have both of them now doing 3 and life leeching 2. You could also have, the magic sniper with 4. This big guy hitting there for 5 for 7, which is very, very respectable. You can also have Jean Myriot now hitting pretty hard. You can have him hitting for 3 for 4 with a stun and the reflection shield, which is pretty crazy. And then you also have cards like Kane Haste, 6 with blast, and reflection shield would be pretty wild. Oost with that bloodlust, having that extra damage to get through. Now, his isn't as big because he goes 3 to 4. The only reason I say 3 to 4 isn't as big as, say, 2 to 3. 2 to 3 makes it so you hit a void character for 2. 3 to 4, you still hit a void character for 2. So these guys going up to 3 is a big increase for them. But the caveat there now, silence all of these guys. And all the 2s that become 1s that become 2s again, now they can actually hurt that void monster. So that's going to be a nice thing to have as opposed to having monsters that can't hurt them. Like the combos that I can definitely see going here is you can go a Life Leech team where you did something like Oost with Life Leech and that extra mana damage with a self heal hanging out in the back. Oppress and Bloodlust could make that 4 very, very interesting and get bigger and bigger. Where you play these 2 Life Leech characters, you play Cane Haste, you put a Life Leech on him, so now that little HP if he's able to get a couple attacks off. So then you got 4 mages that are all Life Leeching, 2 of them doing Affliction and having that extra magic damage. But at the same time, you could put some tank cards up in the front to be a little bit tanky if you want to, so that's going to be pretty interesting. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the other side here. Talk about the melee monsters. So when you look at these guys, any of these guys where 1 extra attack is going to make them just that much better, it is just what you're looking at here. I see cards like the Ferox Defender with that weaker attack. I see overpowered cards like the Striker and the Torch Visor going up to 6, 7, 4s. Those are very interesting. Though you do have to remember that we do have a couple taunting portals you're going to have to be aware of with him. If you're buffing everybody up, playing a card with a portal so that you are only hitting for 1 is going to be something you're going to need to be aware of. So don't sleep on the guys that go from 3 to 4, like the Defender, the Septic Slime in certain situations. But of course, you always could just go for those guys that are opportunity swinging for 8 and maybe with 4 and give him Life Leech. So also, if you see the board in the right situation and you realize he's going to get an attack off, you might give him Trample and Fury if that monster he is theoretically going to hit is going to allow him to trample down the row. Now, if your opportunity isn't doing that, then maybe you go ahead and go the other way. This is kind of the flexibility that I'm talking about. Also, it'll be very interesting to see some of the lack of the healers for the tanks within both of these teams maybe being adjusted for a little bit with Life Leeches. I don't know if that'll be enough to keep them alive, but it'll be an interesting thing to watch happen. Like the one that obviously is interesting, if you use a Cursed Wendeku now, and you're able to put a taunt in the back row with a Night Ghoul or with who has a taunt? Does Fire have a taunt? Oh, maybe they don't. But if you are able to put your Cursed Wendeku, and at least not all damage is targeting him, he lands a couple shots for 4, he Life Leeches up, and now his self-heal starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so he can theoretically get into a situation where he could be self-healing himself for numbers that are kind of ridiculous. It would be pretty wild. Now, obviously, one of the things the Death team lacks for that team to be really, really interesting is a cleanse, but the Fire team brings that in. The Fire team does have their great cleanse, so it is going to be very interesting. The same thing with cards like Heartclaw and his immunity. So if you give him a Life Leech, no one's going to be able to stop him from hitting for 3 and Life Leeching, since he won't be able to get weakened so much. With the caveat that I believe Summoner Weakenings would still work on him, but I don't know if there's a Summoner -1 attack right now that I'm forgetting. I don't think there's one in the meta right now. Also, this card is going to be getting a lot of help from that +1 melee damage. All the 2s that go to 3 are going to be very, very good. He comes to mind. This one comes to mind. Then also you have... Was there one more that came to mind? No, those are the 2 that scream at me that they're going to get the big increase. Obviously, the Coyote is interesting because he could be 2 for 3 damage with Lorkus, but he is only a 2 cost, so I'm not positive he's going to come into play that much when you play a 7 card. That is just kind of how I feel. All right, so we're at the 14-minute mark. Overall, I just want to say, ending as we finish up our talk about this card, I do think it's going to change the meta quite a bit, and if this is the route that they're going, it's going to be quite interesting. It's definitely going to be a card that allows you to play a team that is a little more balanced and then divvy out your tactics depending on what you see on the other side. Are your mages going to be effective? Then maybe make them Life Leech. Do you need Affliction? Then give it to the right person. Run Scattershot monsters, which I didn't really focus on as much as I should have, but I did show you the one on the they're mostly going to be, let's go ahead just really quickly and switch it up to ranged and magic, and we'll take a look at some of the scattershot monsters. We did point out right away with fire that this card right here has scattershot. You have this archer here who's a true striking scattershot that could now also have life leech and affliction for the back row, and he wouldn't be able to miss. So when he can't miss, you're probably going to land a couple of afflictions in a turn, and he's going to have that extra HP, so very interesting for like a game where he might end up in the front. And then obviously Baron Fiat can now have that life leeching affliction on top of having in the back row, and on top of it being an ambush attack, so you're going to possibly get that done in the first round, in the pre-round. And then there is there another? Oh, Ra's another scatter shot. He's also somebody that would be interesting if he's landing those hits and then leeching in a good amount of life backwards. And then really quick here, let's go ahead and add in the neutral monsters. You have Jim Meteor, you have the Dry Bone Bulldog, and then I have heard some people say give Dr. Life Leech, and that's going to be really broken. I can see that, but he already has Affliction, so you're kind of doubling up there. But there definitely could be some game modes where just having a Dr. Blight who can Life Leech and Scavenge, which is kind of what I said with the Immolation, but he's doing it on a smaller scale, is kind of crazy. And then there should be... That's it for the Scattershot monsters, right? Yeah. And then obviously, like I talked about him, but I didn't really point out, but any of these melee monsters here, Monoroth getting up to that 4th damage, that's kind of nice, especially if there's any weakening on the other side. Kind of funny also, if he gets halved now, he doesn't go down to 1, he goes down to 2, which would be a nice little bonus. Cards like the Zenith Monk, getting that extra 3rd damage is pretty cool. Drybone Raider is kind of interesting. Definitely want to say, any of these guys getting an extra attack is definitely an interesting play, but I don't know that anybody really stands out besides the couple that I've mentioned. All right, let's go have a little bit of fun currently. Okay, we need to go to shop, rebellion, at least I hope it's going to be fun, conflict, and claim. So I ended up with 2,257 chances. Kind of bummed, didn't get to that 275 here. So if we do our quick math right here, we do 2,257. We divide that by the 275. I should get at least 8. So I'm looking at 8. I'm looking at having to go to market for 3 if I want to have a maxed out version of it's Venka the Vile, not Kai. Kai was the other card. So let's see if I get lucky, if I get any golds, or if I get anything else. So let's check my rewards. 20 vouchers per card. Okay, so let's see. How does this work? Does that mean I got 10? Max 10. Oh, yeah, I got 10. So I got 2 extra. That's not bad at all. And then I'll go ahead and spend the 200 vouchers because I have them to see if I could turn any of them gold. All right, 10 boosted chances, 2 extra cards, and will I get my first gold from an airdrop, or will that be reserved for Lorkus? Let's see. Nope, 10 standard cards. I boosted each time. I do a good job of burning vouchers, guys, and even buying them, but I am not good at getting golds. I am pretty good at getting extra copies. Let's go to the market and see. She is currently $20, and I need 1 card, so I'm going to pick that up, but I am going to go to somebody I just want to give a quick shout-out to, Aqualis. This is run by a buddy of the game who did launch his special token, and let's see if I can get it over here. So I want a neutral card in Rebellion. Oh, wait, I have to select neutral. I forget that everything is selected here when you first come here. There it is. I just want to buy... Well, let's see. Who do I want to buy it from if they're all the same price? Well, I guess I'll save that 1 penny and buy one of these ones. And then I will get my automatic 3% back on that buy. And then I'll have my max level card and be ready to try to go buy. Try and get those Grim Bardoons. So we'll have that come in. We have 11 cards. Let's go ahead and put them together. Would have liked to have pulled that gold, but just, I guess since I wasn't live streaming, you don't get video luck. You only get live streaming luck, right? But let's go ahead and go. We got our 11. We got our new ability that this unit may attack from any position and will target the enemy in the first position. We've got that piercing. We've got that oppress. We have 7 attack. And then if she pops you, she has trample. And there's that DEC back from Aqualis. Not bad to get a little 648 DEC back just for using their marketplace. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you had better luck than me with Venka. And you got some golds or even got more than 2 extras. And hopefully you didn't get unlucky. But, you know, we'll see what you guys say when you watch the video. Bye.